My guest today is Stephanie Ramírez, Director of Social and New Media at Amherst College, and she has such a refreshing perspective on student content creators that you're going to want to hear it. Welcome to Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager. I'm Jenny Li Fowler, award-winning social media professional, author, and podcast host, and a recognized voice across the social media marketing industry. Social media managers are navigating the wild, ever-changing world of higher ed communications, and I'm here to share the real stories and lessons behind the posts. Each episode explores the challenges, strategies, and untold moments that come with running social media accounts in today's digital landscape. Let's get into it. Miss Stephanie, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you, Jenny, for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Me too. And I know that a lot of people will be very interested in this topic. So Stephanie, tell us about the structure of your student team.
I have a student team of about 8 to 10 interns. They work with me throughout the course of a year, approximately 4 to 6 hours a week. It can be a little more or a little less, depending on the projects that they have going on. And they're primarily content creators for the college. So it was actually a team that I inherited when I joined Amherst about 5 years ago. And shout out, in fact, to Rachel Hagerstrom, who was featured in the last episode.
Who recommended you for the podcast. So thanks to Rachel for that. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Rachel. She was also the person who began the team. She's my predecessor here at Amherst. And so when the team worked for Rachel and when they first started working for me, they were a lot more of a freelance team. So we met once a week, and then they would kind of go out, run off, do their assignments, come back, give them to me. And that was sort of the bulk of our interactions. I started working at Amherst during the pandemic in 2020. And naturally, as you might imagine, students were feeling a little lost. They felt like their time wasn't, very structured anymore. They were doing everything remotely. And obviously there was a lack of a sense of community. And so I was starting to feel that in the team a little bit, and they were starting to be a little flaky. So I did a restructuring of the team. During that time, I was thinking a lot about what the role looked like, and in particular, what students were taking away from it. And so, I asked myself a lot, was I the only one benefiting from the intern role, or were they taking any meaningful experience from it? And so with that thought, I landed on something that I felt was...
Good question. That's a great question to ask. Yeah, what are they getting out of it, right?
Exactly. And it's a question you kind of have to ask yourself when they start being flaky, right? Because you're like, they're going to start to let go of the things that they don't think serve them anymore. So if you're...
Right. That aren't a priority. That's so true.
Exactly. And so through that thought process, I landed on something that I hoped was mutually beneficial for me and for them. And so what that was in spring 2022, I kept our weekly team meetings, but I added a structure in which our students come to the office for 2 hours every week.
When you say student interns, are they always Amherst students, or are they ever like students that go to a different university?
That's such a good question. They're actually right now always Amherst students. We have in the past explored having students. We actually have a neighboring school, which is UMass Amherst.
Yes.
And so in the past, we've thought about that. But as I've learned from HR, it's a little more complicated to pay students who are not from the college. So for now, they're Amherst students.
Fair, because people have all different systems. And then when you said, right now, you said how many students? Is 8 to 10 that a sweet spot for you? Do you find that more is too much?
8 to 10 is definitely a good sweet spot for us. I mean, I think like 5 to 7 would be an equally good one as well.
Okay.
But
all right.
Sometimes 8 to 10.
Fits.
Yeah, 8 to 10 can be a lot to manage at times. But the reason we've landed in that place is because I've been really blessed and I've not had a lot of turnover on our team. And so what that has led to is that I've sometimes had to add new roles in order to make space for new class years or new majors or what have you. That's why we're at 10. In an ideal world, maybe I'd have more like 5.
That's a great
It,
problem to have.
exactly.
Exactly. When you're like, they just don't want to leave me. I don't know what to do. I mean, a lot of us don't have that problem. So, okay. So let's go back to that where you said you started to have office hours. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So they come into the office 2 continuous hours. So they pick kind of like a chunk in their schedule that works for them week to week. We try to make sure it's consistent and that it's the same date and time.
Whenever they can hop in, you wanted to see them. That's the point of it.
Exactly. I want them to have a guaranteed FaceTime with me. Like they can come, they can ask me questions. It's also a guaranteed slot in their schedule where they can do their work. Like they can follow up on projects. If they need to edit a video, talk to someone, what have you. And also just in general, I mean, as I was saying, like that sort of thought of wanting it to be a mutually beneficial relationship, the thing that I kept thinking about was how do they feel invested in this thing and how do they feel like a part of the wider team? And so coming into the office also means they get to meet the other members of the communications office. They get to develop relationships with them. They have a dedicated physical space. They have a desk and a computer and everything that I've set up for them. So they get to feel like they're a part of the communications team at Amherst.
Let's be real. It's hard getting full-time paid employees to go to weekly meetings, and we have to. How do you get students to attend a weekly meeting? And what do you cover?
Yeah, it's sort of funny because in a lot of ways now, 5 years in, them attending meetings has become somewhat intrinsic. Like they feel very self-motivated to be there. And in fact, sometimes they'll tell me it's their favorite part of the week, which I do not take that for granted.
That is kudos to you. Okay, tell me more. I need more.
So how did that become the case, I guess? It has a lot to do with our sort of team culture, the ways in which I've really tried to show up for them. So, we've developed a sort of team for me, when we were individual contributors before, right? Like the previous model of the team, I never had this feeling that we were a team, so to say. And so I've put a lot of time and thought and effort into how we can have these sort of, I don't know, habits or rituals or traditions, if you will, where we nurture each other and our relationships to each other, if that makes sense. Yes. So things that we do, for example, is like, I celebrate their birthdays at team meetings, right? I'll bring them cake or whatever treat they've asked for the week of their birthday. We do ratings around the table. So at the beginning of every week, we come in and before we dive into the work thing, we go around and we go, okay, I'm having a 6 out of a 10 kind of week, and we'll tell people why. And actually, famously, one of my students, Logan, always comes in with some kind of decimal. So he's like, I'm having an 8.9876. And so we all have a good laugh about that. So it's doing stuff like that. I ask them about their classes and I ask them about their extracurriculars. And I try really hard to nurture my individual relationships with them.
You're checking in with them as people. And wait, cake or any snack that they're requesting? What?
We've had pizza. We've had boba.
An entire cake?
Yes.
Wait, are you doing this? Okay, are you doing this out of pocket?
At the beginning I did, but then eventually I got very lucky.
I'm glad you got
and I made it work out of the budget. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's fair. I was just going to say, with 8 to 10, there's like a birthday every month, right?
I know. Actually, and their birthdays are very clustered. I'll have like 2 on the same week or what have you.
You don't make them share the cake. You individually celebrate each person.
If they've both asked for the same kind of cake sometimes.
Okay.
Famously, we had a meeting once where we had 3 different treats: cookies, cake, and boba. That's part of the thing, right? We have camaraderie. We laugh with each other. We have inside jokes. We don't take ourselves too seriously. And I think that has really led to the sort of environment that they enjoy being in. And that's become really critical to them coming and showing up week after week.
Well, that's a lot of you. That's a testament to you too, because you're really building that community there. So I will definitely give you that credit for sure. What business are you conducting in these meetings, Stephanie, aside from drinking boba and having pizza?
Yeah. So we keep a team agenda in Asana. Asana is
Oh,
our
you
project
have.
management tool.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so we keep an agenda that I come back to week, and it's a couple of different things. Primarily, it's project updates. So we'll everybody has. I mean, we have a running list of new ideas that we then we kind of move it up the agenda, if you will. So it goes from being like a new idea to in production to ready to post. So we'll sort of move through that together in the team meeting, where I'll be like, okay, where does this video stand or this carousel or what have you. So that's one part. I will often try to share if I found out kind of interesting news from social media. I'll share that with them, like some kind of algorithmic change or some new platform or what have you. We try to share content that we find inspirational or interesting or that we would think about emulating as well. So we provide links to each other and we watch them together as a team. And then sometimes we talk about college news and college campaigns. As much information as I can give them about what's going on at the college, I might. So, yeah, like campaigns, we
Wow.
actively are working on a campaign for our student centered dining commons. Amherst is in the process of building a new student centered dining commons. So
Mm.
I give them updates where I can, and we try to think about like, how are we building hype for this thing, on social media for students?
It really sounds like you have like strict, not strict, but like there are things that you accomplish every meeting. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how long are these meetings?
They're an hour. And the other thing is
And you keep them to an hour. Do you keep them to an hour?
I try as much as I can. They're
I mean,
usually an
even with the
hour.
pizza
Yeah.
and the boba, it's an hour?
Yeah, it's like grab your pizza and we're getting started. We start
Okay,
with
okay,
ratings.
okay,
We start with
okay.
our ratings and then, we might sing a little happy birthday song. But yes, we try to get started as much as we can. But yeah, so it's an hour. And then one interesting thing when I did this sort of restructuring was I sort of made this decision to make the team meeting the same time year to year. So it's always Thursdays from 4:15 to 5:15. And when I hire students now, I set that expectation then that they
Mm.
need to be available for that meeting time
So they
rather
can
than
build their schedules around that, right? It's
exactly
it's just built in. That's smart.
rather than
Okay.
trying to reverse engineer some time that everybody magically has available.
Which it doesn't exist, right? That's
Exactly.
such a good idea. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I make exceptions. Like sometimes we have student athletes who can't attend for a semester because of, games and practices, and that's fine, especially because we have the office hours. They still feel like a part of the team. That has worked out so much better for us because it means that they go into their next semester knowing this is a chunk of time I always have to have for the social media team.
And just leave it free.
Exactly.
That's such a good tip, Stephanie. So what does success look like for your interns, right?
Yeah.
Beside just posting whatever they create every
Right.
week. Do you expect them to post something every week, or how does that work?
They don't really have an expectation of how often they have to post.
Oh, that's fair. Okay.
Because sometimes they're creating stuff that's evergreen. And so like I might be the one to push it out. In fact, I often probably am the one delaying their projects. There's no real expectation of how often they have to produce. There's just an expectation of this they have to produce, if that makes sense. Like
They
they're
have to be
assigned to a
creating
project.
content. Okay.
Yeah, in terms of what success looks like for them, it's kind of I was thinking about this a lot, and it's kind of an interesting question because obviously like having them produce content and deliver it on deadline and all that stuff is sort of the answer you want to give sometimes of like, yeah, they're doing stuff that I need them to do sort of thing. But when I reflect on it, I think to me, a student who is successful in this role is often a student who comes away with an understanding that the work of social media is more complex than just creating and posting content every day. I want them to see that it requires nuance and it requires strategy, it requires ethics. It requires collaboration with others. And so, when I sit down in the team meeting and they're pitching me a new idea and they start saying things to me where they're like considering our audience on a platform and thinking about the goal of the thing. And I'm like, oh, they don't need me anymore. Like to me, a student is successful when they're in that place where to them, they've really begun to understand the behind the scenes of the thing. So it's not just about, I make this thing, it goes up online. It's that I thought about it. And I thought about the repercussions it could have, and I thought about the message it sends on behalf of the brand. I believe that even for a student who doesn't go on to do social media as a career, because social media touches every industry, right? And now we have
Oh,
athletes and
yes.
doctors and folks who are influencers online who have these same thoughts every day. Like maybe one of them will go on to do that. We'll see someday, right? But for them to even engage with something on social media and see it and know that there was a person behind it who put that thought into it, like that to me is a successful student for sure.
Gonna hit pause for a second to share some awesome news. If you or your team are looking for practical strategies to crush operational bottlenecks and scale engagement with AI, then Engage Summit 2026 in Charlotte needs to be your destination this June 15th through the 17th. From hands-on sessions to main stage keynotes showing how AI transforms enrollment and retention, Engage Summit is the place to level up your institution's game in ways you probably didn't realize were possible. You'll walk away with tools, frameworks, and connections that actually move the needle, and people who will keep pushing you forward long after the conference ends. The good news? Spots are still available. And even better news? Enrollify listeners can get 50% off ticket price. Yes, half off. Just head to engage.element451.com and use the code Fowler50. That's F as in Frank, OWLER 50. Now back to the show. I love this so much. And we'll go back to the thought of like, oh gosh, like you can't, you have so many interns that want to stick around. Like what, what an amazing problem to have. But for me, when I have like an intern for the summer or like a fall, I feel like you're just kind of onboarding them. And as soon as they're really working on their own, the internship is over. And, and it's so like, I don't know, painful, but I do wish that the internships were longer, right? And you seem to have this great, I don't mean like this, system where they're staying on because they want to, and you're getting them beyond just sort of the onboarding of getting familiar to where they're really thinking as professional social media strategists.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly the goal.
That's great. That's amazing.
That's certainly the goal.
So do you think it's because you give them more, credit, responsibility, accountability, that they're feeling more accountable to you and they want to stay? I mean, do you think that's part of it?
I think that definitely plays a part of it. I do try to give them creative freedom. There's limits, right? And a part of that is understanding those limits is precisely understanding the kind of behind the scenes work that social media takes, right? Like you operate within a visual identity, et cetera.
You're a professional. It's a brand voice.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. We can't just say anything. We can't hop on every trend. We don't belong in every trend, right? So they have creative freedom, which I think they enjoy, even within those limits. They really enjoy seeing sort of the inner machinations of the college. I think they really like seeing the sort of behind the scenes stuff that they know they ordinarily wouldn't see before. To give an example, actually, this past weekend, the college celebrated its annual literary festival, which is called LitFest. And we had Pete Buttigieg on campus. And so I assigned 2 of our students to cover that event with me. And like, they saw it all and they were fascinated by it. And it's really funny because over the course of the weekend, like I was like, my social media coordinator and I were like, oh my God, we're working on a weekend and we're kind of tired. And the students are like, we're loving this thing. And it, it was really, really funny. They really do. They like seeing that part and being a part of that. And, when they see it go out on social media, they're like, oh yeah, I played a role in that. And so I think that keeps them really tied to the thing. And I try to be a person who explains the why to them very often so that they can see more of that.
I think, yeah. That's, I mean, that's important in parenting, right?
Right.
But also me being an employee, like I search the whys for things too. Like what's the end goal of this campaign? But it does feel like you have them working like soup to nuts, like from the start to the finish. They help create the campaign, they help execute the campaign, and then they see it
Yeah,
to fruition, right?
exactly. And, they also often do things that are not just creating content because I want them to see what social media is like as a career. So I have them write alternate text. I have them draft captions.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yes.
we got to help.
It's
We really
that
have to
is a
help
part
have
of
them help
it.
us. Yeah, they have to help
Yeah.
us with the
No,
whole thing.
but it's not all like influencer glamour and getting like
Exactly.
unboxing. It's like accessibility and, and
Yes.
copywriting and all of that stuff that's not so glamorous. So I think that's really
Exactly.
important. Yeah.
I've had them help me turn web stories into social content. I've had them help me develop trainings, do research to develop campus guidelines. I mean, I try to involve them in as much as I can. Obviously, there are you have to have boundaries within that. They can't see every single thing that's happening on the team. But
And you can't just give them all the boring stuff. Like, this is
yeah.
fascinating to
You
me
gotta
because
you have to
like,
divide it a little bit.
I'm like, how do you give them that stuff and go, I'm out, Stephanie. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I'm honestly fascinated.
I think I try to make sure that I'm dividing it with the creative, fun stuff. Sometimes it's as simple as when they have office hours, they might have just wrapped up a project and they don't have anything to do. And I'm like, you know what? We're working on this thing. Why don't you try your hand at it? And so sometimes it could be that simple. But yeah, no, I try to balance it with the creative stuff. I mean, the team meetings really get more at the creative stuff. So what that means is that like they're usually still assigned to something. Like even when they're doing, like if they're doing research for guidelines, that's a long-term project enough that I still tell them like, okay, you can still go off and film and do other things. And then when you
Right.
come back to the office, you're
That's
maybe
not their
working on that.
only assignment that they're doing. Okay. I
Exactly.
gotcha.
Exactly. I also have lucked out with the personalities that I've gotten because they are usually really game to do most of anything. But we think very deeply about who we hire.
Are they recruiting each other? Do you know how like-minded people attract like-minded people? Like,
Yes,
I
right.
really, really believe this. And so, like, if you've cultivated this team, culture, you tend to attract, I think, people that are attracted to that kind of thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they do. They tell their friends when we're hiring and things like that. I mean, I actually don't tend to know that. Sometimes they'll mention it to me like, hey, I told my friend about it, but they won't give me a name or what have you. But
Okay.
then I have had team meetings with like when the new interns start and they're like, oh yeah, I know her from this, that, and the other thing. And like they knew
They
that the
give
other
you
person.
recommendations. Yeah.
Yes,
Like,
yes. But for the most part, we try to make it kind of a democratic process on campus, and not try to just make it sort of always being
like a
their
friend of a
networks.
friend. Okay, so
Yeah.
do you do you have them help with the interviews? Like, how do your interviews go?
So it's actually just my social media coordinator and me, mostly because Amherst is so small. Amherst is a school of about 2,000 students, and they all either know each other or know something of a person. And
I
so
didn't
they'll
okay,
yes,
yeah. That's
Amherst is really
small.
teeny
Yeah.
tiny. And so being so close knit, like I've wanted to include them in the interviews in the past, but it's difficult because they always have some kind of perception of someone.
That's fair. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a conscious decision just to have you and your coordinator do the
Exactly. I have in the past
interviews.
I've in the past actually like just anonymized just the notes that my coordinator and I have taken and asked them for advice like, hey, what do you think about this person based on their skill set? But I don't include them in the interviews for that reason. It's just too much
Mm.
bias.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that and respect that very much. But going back to the team, so you seem to have this culture. I imagine they spitball ideas and give you ideas
Hmm.
too. Do you guys generate I think that there
Yeah,
are
definitely.
so many teams that find it difficult to even get creative ideas from their full-time employees.
Right,
Like,
right,
so
exactly.
how are you doing this with your students?
Yeah. One big thing I think about sometimes in meetings where I definitely talk a lot in meetings, but I try not to be the person always filling the silence. So sometimes I'll sit there and I'll be like, okay, we have to go back to the student centered dining commons example. Like we have the student centered dining commons, it's opening in the fall. what are things that you guys are seeing online that you think could work for this thing? And then I just shut up, don't say a thing. And I wait for one person to feel awkward and start spitballing something.
My skip boss does that actually, and it's great. But you have to be comfortable with the silence, right? You have to be
totally
comfortable.
And they fill it very quickly.
And it must be beneficial, like,
yes,
for you.
But we do, I mean, there's definitely moments where there's crickets, and they don't have an idea for something. And maybe what I'll do in that case is I'll throw out my own and I'll say like, hey, this is very spaghetti on the wall. Here's like a not fully formed thing that I am thinking. And that's when they'll really start being like, well, now that you mentioned that, this could work, or this is the part that fascinates me the most about that thing, or maybe it's not that format, maybe it's this style. But I do try to have them fill the silence a little bit. That's also why I try to show them content that I find either inspirational or interesting. And I've told them in the past, this isn't necessarily because we have to do this. It's because I want your brain to sometimes be like, oh, hey, remember that thing we saw 2 months ago? Maybe that works for this campaign that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And just to get the juices flowing, but it sounds to me like you take their ideas very seriously and their suggestions, and then that they actually see them be realized. Is that the case?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have been in this role for 5 years now, right? And I think that one thing that I'm learning more and more is I have to question my own ideas of what I believe to be right for our socials.
I think that's good.
Yeah. And so I think that actually my student interns have taught me that more and more. When I first started, it wasn't that I was resistant to their ideas at all. They saw their ideas realized. I think I was more resistant, or like maybe I tried to, at times, give them more feedback than they even needed, if that makes sense. And more I've told myself, like, they have a very different understanding and approach to social. The approach that I can give is that strategic brand, right? Like that's the experience that I have, is that understanding. And I understand the technology of social media, if that makes sense. I understand the things that the algorithm is going to prioritize, the things it's going to deprioritize, and I can bring that to them. But I have to question myself all the time. And that's why I have to allow their feedback to be meaningful. And I have to take them very seriously in the things that they tell me. So I think that's something I've tried really hard to do the last few years.
Hey, Stephanie, I am with you. I have learned that I am Unk.
Aren't we all?
I mean,
maybe the cooler thing is to be Unk. Maybe the cooler thing is to be
I don't know. Or like, at least I realize I am. And I guess for some of our friends who don't know that term, it's like saying hello, fellow kids, right?
Yeah,
it's like the hello, fellow kids moment. And you have to realize when you're doing that. I totally hear you. Okay, so I think culture has a lot to do with the person managing it. And you give some great tips, but I do have to say, I think that you're doing a great job in creating this wonderful culture for your team. But for social media managers that are wanting to start or looking to start a student content creation team, like what's your advice? Like what should be their step one?
I was a team of one at one point. And it's really easy to think, okay, I can use these student content creators and have them go out and do these things. And that's great, right? They're going to come back and they're probably still going to produce great work for you. But to that point that I made earlier, I think that thinking about what they're getting out of this is going to be the thing that ultimately is going to make or break a program. So students are coming to college to learn. No matter how we slice it, sure, they take on jobs because they need money and what have you, but they're coming to campuses to learn. And I think we need to equally offer them that opportunity. And don't get me wrong, it takes so much time and so much effort, but it pays off. It really does. The product that I'm talking about now and the product that you're seeing now is the product of that 5 years of work that I put into this team. I don't want to toss it out there like it's the easiest thing in the world to do.
Yeah, like creating community takes effort.
A lot of effort, exactly.
And boba and pizza and going to kids games,
a couple Saturday mornings. But I will say I loved going to those games. Shout out to my my former student intern Ben there.
I think you have to, right? You have to love it. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think with that in mind, then when you start this thing, before you go out and hire think about it. Give it some, like, be thoughtful in your approach to these things. You know, what are they getting out of it? What is the
I
experience you want to give them? What is the culture that you want to develop? How do you want them to walk away from this thing? Um, the more invested they are in the work, the better the work is going to be.
It's wise words. Miss Stephanie, what is your confession?
Well, probably tied right to what I said, but the work that we do online is not nearly as important as the work that we do offline. You know, I take a lot of pride in the college's
That's
social media
so
presence.
beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't say that to be sort of glib about the work that we do online. I take a lot of pride in what we do at Amherst. I really try to, you know, curate and cultivate a great social media presence. But the thing that I try to ground myself in all the time is that 10 years from now, someone isn't going to necessarily remember something I posted, but my team is always going to remember the way that I made them feel. And that's important to me.
You probably know my favorite Maya Angelou quote, right? People
No, I don't think
never
I do.
Oh, it's like people never remember what you've said, but they always remember how you made them feel.
Oh, exact. That's the nail on the head.
Yeah, I don't think that's word for word, but it's something along the lines to that. And so
Yeah.
that's so great. And you sound like an amazing mentor. These students
thank
are
you.
very, very lucky to have you in their lives. And I am lucky that you spent this time with me on my podcast. So thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank you, Jenny. I really appreciate it. And I'd be remiss not to shout out my students, of course, just to say thank you to them. I feel equally lucky to have them in my lives.
Thanks for listening to Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.